a Sony DAT in, and I know it looks like it fell off the back of a truck, but the owner assures me that it was like that when he bought it off of eBay in 2010. And it's been working, but now it's not working. So he'd like me to take a look at this one before I throw a tape in it. He says it's having the tape loading problems. Other than the loading problem, it's running perfect. Okay, that's always the way, right? Things run perfect other than they have a problem. This one here, as you can see, it's that's how he bought it. He bought it with the back smashed in and the front panel missing and the wrong screws in it, it looks like. Yep, definitely the wrong screws. That does not look like the type of screw normally found on these. Okay, let's observe what it does. I'll turn on the power. And we'll load a tape and observe what it does. We can see the exit side guide is not moving on the right side of the drum. Okay, I can see what's going on right now. The take-up spool is not turning. We'll try rewind. Nothing's happening on rewind. Nothing's happening on forward. And of course nothing's going to happen on play. Well, that time it moved, but it doesn't really want to move. And it says caution on the display. Let's eject the tape. Well, at least it didn't eat the tape. Okay, we got to get into this mechanism. First things first, we'll depower the unit. I'll just unplug it at the source. And we're going to remove the deck. It's held in place by 4 screws down here and a couple clips that we have to undo. So we'll just undo the clips. I guess I could have just undone that one there, couldn't I? I could have just undone that one and this one. And yes, that is the Beatles on a DAT tape. I actually have a recording, a bootleg, of the Beatles when they played at Empire Stadium in Vancouver in 1964, recorded by the legendary broadcaster Red Robinson. He was under the stage. He was the master of ceremonies. He fired up a tape recorder and he recorded the concert, and they broadcast it on radio many years ago, the entire concert, all like 20 minutes of it. We couldn't hear anything, just screaming girls, but I've got that recorded on DAT tape somewhere too, tucked away in my drawer somewhere with all the other DAT tapes. Just doesn't want to come out. The magnet's not strong enough to lift it. Okay, lift the deck out. Now we can work on this where the problem is going to be. These are always fun to get these ones apart. You got to undo clips that hold the wires down underneath the board and undo some plugs. But you don't have to take the board out completely. You can just hang it off the back. You just have to get enough clearance to remove that base that's got the motors on it and the gears. Got to get these plugs and undo some plugs here so I have some slack on the wire I'm working on. They don't give much slack on these machines. And this one does not unplug. That's not a plug. Nor is it a plug on this end, I don't think. They unplug from here. There we go. Unplug that one. This is the real drive motor over here. It's just a separate DC motor. Some of the models use the capstan motor to turn the real drive. On this one, it's just a DC motor with a toothed belt. And the grease dries up. I gotta pull this piece out as well. Take this block off to get at the top side of the mechanism. Held on by 3 screws. Actually, 4 screws. There's one on the front as well. And I can lift the mechanism up and away from the rest of the chassis. So this is the gear that loads and unloads. This is the cam gear that moves the guides back and forth, and I can see that one of the guides is not moving. This one's come off. You see this? This one's come off here, so one guide's not moving. That gear's popped down. We have to reset that. It has to go in. There's a larger tooth here that fits in. When it's locked in place to the proper position, it's there. So that operates the mechanism. That's all moving smoothly. On the circuit board here, there are a couple sensors, and there's also a couple of switches which are on the top, which do get dirty. But what we have to do is we have to make sure that nothing is sticking on here, like these solenoids, and the pendulum arm here has a tendency to get gummed up. As does this. This gets gummed up too. These gears here, which affect the ability for it to load. This gear feels pretty frozen. Yeah, the grease is dried up on this one big time. Can't even pull the gear off. It's so gummed up. This is the one that's seized up on here. That one's seized up. These other ones here are probably okay. but we're going to lubricate them anyway. Yeah, that one lifts up okay. And this one here lifts up okay. And that one there lifts up okay as well. So we're going to get some lubricant and lubricate these gears a bit. Clean this metal post here. You can see where the glue on here is just dried up. So I'm just going to go get some isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip. We'll clean that up and we'll clean the inside of this gear up. And then put a little bit of fresh lubricant on it. And that should fix the problem with this. It'll fix that problem. There's at least 3 other problems with this unit. There, nice and turns nice and freely now. Just see how freely these turn, and there's no sticking on these that I can see. Everything here seems to be turning fairly freely. The reel drive is no problem. Let's see if I turn the pulley. Where are we here? It turns the reels. You see, there's one reel turning there, one hub. Turn it down here on the loading motor. It's a little easier to get to, but as you can see, the reel drive is no problem. There's no dried grease there. Where the problem was here on this gear. It was loading very slowly. It was not completing the loading cycle. The detection switches also have to be cleaned as well, that tell the system what position it's in. They are on the top side of the chassis on these. So I can throw this part back together as this part is dealt with. I don't think we have to worry too much about these. These are the felt pads are there for the brakes, and everything appears to be nice and like there's no nothing's freezing up on here. It was really just this one that was the one that was causing all the trouble. And you saw from the struggle I had, even after I had it unmeshed so it wasn't dragging up against the other part of the mechanism, it was still really hard to remove because it was all gummed up. And as you can see, it's free now. The motor can turn very, very easily. So I'll put the transport back in. These were a really simple mechanism. I like these ones because they were very, very simple to work on compared to some of the earlier machines. Just making sure that everything is still in position when I drop the chassis in. Now if I turn the gear here, you'll see the loading mechanism will load. If I turn it back the other way, you'll see the guides and the pinch roller will now retract. So loading is this way. And unloading. What the hell? It's jamming. That's sticking on unload. It's sticking it. Oh, there. No, it's not sticking now. Wonder why it stuck that one time. Now it sticks again. It sticks when it's right side up. But it doesn't stick when it's upside down. That is weird. Okay, we'll have to remove this again and investigate to see why it's sticking. I believe there's a clip that's missing. That one, that gear has a little plastic clip on it, and I don't see one on this one. This is the one that was loose. So where is that clip? I don't see it in the mechanism anywhere. Oh, there it is right there. It fell off, I guess. We'll put that back on. Yeah, that's probably why. Okay, that's probably why it was jamming when it was turned upside down. The gear was shifting slightly, causing it to stick. Okay, let's throw this back together. Alright, let's run the mechanism through its paces again. Everything threads up like it should, and everything retracts like it should. Okay, that's got that part taken care of. I haven't mounted the circuit board yet, but I need to get to the little switches on the front. And they are right down here, and well, they're accessible without having to really remove too much. Just have to remove a couple of screws and I can lift this whole switch plate out. I could take the front loading mechanism off to do that too. But let me get the circuit board on the bottom reattached. This is kind of tricky on here because these wires have to all be held up out of the way so that they don't jam up the caps and motor, so they're held in place by a wire clip. And then these wires here are pulled around like that, and the board attaches. going to release this spring like that, so that I can drop this chassis down and remove it like that. That way I can get at the switches here. The switches are on the bottom side, so I have to remove this screwdriver a little bit longer. Maybe magnetize it first. Four screws that need to come out, the 3 in the circuit board and the 1 on this other switch at the front here. I don't know if that makes it any easier or not. I don't think it does. Lift this whole switch assembly up and out. Like that. That's all I need to do is get it up like this. It's got to get some spray cleaner into these contacts and these little pin switches. These switches give us the trouble. But ideally you want to try to get this away from the mechanism when you spray it, so that you don't get contact cleaner where contact cleaner doesn't belong. So I just try to lift the wires up here just to give myself a little more slack. I'm going to use some Neutral. You can use your favorite cleaner, Deox it, whatever, it works. I've got Neutral at hand. That's what I'm going to use. Put the nozzle over top of the switch so that when I hit the button, it'll actually spray the cleaner into the switch itself and not so much into everything else. And of course get it all over my fingers, which is always wonderful. I just love getting contact cleaner on me. Work those ones first, clean these other ones, and then go and wash my hands and get that contact cleaner off them. I don't like having contact cleaner on my fingers. It's got diesel in it. I'm sure diesel's a carcinogen of some type. That'll clean that switch quite nicely. Okay, mount this back into the unit and see what works. Still getting a caution indicator on here. Why? Probably because the timer switch was set to. Was it because the timer switch is set to record? We'll see what happens. Nope. It's not. What happened there? I just ended up with a bunch of tape all over the inside. Wonderful. One less tape I've got now as a test tape. Okay, it's just something on the tape. It was just something that was on that tape that was causing it to stick. At least that part was. This deck still has other mechanical problems, I can just tell. It appears what the problem is the brakes aren't being released properly. So comes the mechanism again. We're going to go through this thing and just go through the operation of the brakes and make sure that the brakes are properly releasing when the mechanism goes into fast forward and rewind and play, etc. Back under here we go again to take a look at that mechanism one more time. When they work good, but when they don't work, well, they can be a bit of a pain in the ass to work on. So we'll just pop out the screws, lift the wires around the board so I can lift the board out. Braking is controlled by a separate solenoid. Like there are two solenoids. One is the one that locks the mechanism in place. I mean, it's pretty simple design. This one is pretty simple. How it works is the one motor that had that gear that was all gummed up, that drives the slide back and forth, and the slide does everything else. So all this does is this just turns this gear, right? This motor just turns this gear, and then when this solenoid engages over here, I guess that one, yeah, this one, it puts the brakes on right here, so it stops that from turning, so that you don't have to keep the motor energized. Normally this will turn freely, but when that solenoid comes on, that locks that one in place. That stops the mechanism from winding its way back. This other solenoid here is one that removes and applies the brakes. Actually, both of them do. One controls the upper brake, the other controls the lower brake. And something appears to be sticking there. Oh, you know what? That's what's going on. There's another clip that's missing. That one just fell off here. There's another clip here that's missing that holds this in place. Just like these ones had fallen off. There's one that I can see that just fell off here. The mechanism will just tip it to get it back. Where'd it go? It's in here somewhere. These are the clips I'm talking about. They go on here and they hold these pieces in place. There's one more that goes there. There's one here, there's one here, and then they're on the guides over here. There's one more that's fallen off. I gotta find out where it is. It's probably stuck in the mechanism here somewhere. There's one more of those that go on there. That is what's effing up on this one. The reason these clips are coming off is they got a crack in them. See? They've cracked. That's why they're falling off. So I'm gonna have to basically melt these together with my tip of my soldering iron so that they can't come off, because that's what's happened on the other ones. They're also, the other ones were also cracked and they just fall off. They don't hold anything on. So we're gonna have to come up with a way to hold these things together so that they don't fall apart. Otherwise this mechanism is not going to work. I mean, this is what you get when you've got a machine that is as old as this is. Here's a clip here, right? This one fell off. Let's take a look at this one. This is the one of the ones that's come off. If you look at this thing here, it's got a crack in it. You can see the crack right there. So there's no friction to hold this on, and it will fall off on its own. So I'm going to have to probably, I don't have a cut washer or anything that'll go on there, but we got to put something on there to hold that down. Maybe put this clip on and just fuse it a bit with the end of the soldering iron just to hold it on there so it doesn't pop off. Otherwise this is going to fall apart again, and that's what releases the brakes and locks the brakes on. When the solenoid kicks in, that releases the brakes at the same time as it puts the brake on over here to stop this from turning, right? That releases the brakes, but these have to be held down, and with broken clips that's not going to work. So we're gonna have to melt this a bit, I think, just to get this to stay in place, because I don't have any clips like this and they're broken. So all I can do is to try to shore them up so that they don't fall apart. I'm going to attempt to make a clip using a piece of plastic and just drilling a little hole through it with a screwdriver. And we'll trim this off. Yes, they're that sharp. Will this go down over here and hold it in place? If we put this in here, will that fit down over that hole and hold that thing in place? I bet it will. Damn. I'm good. I'm damn good. I'm that good. I'm that good. Manufacture my own little part. This one here, I'm going to just fuse this one a bit with my soldering iron just so that it doesn't fall off. Same with these other ones. I'm just going to, the other ones down here, I'm just going to just tap the edge of them slightly just so that they are not going to come off. Because with them being loose like that, you just know it's going to, once again, fail. Just cut that out of a little piece of plastic that I had kicking around. But that won't come off now. That's a tight fit on here. I don't think it'll be a problem. At least that'll keep that mechanism back together. As far as the other ones go, well, if I just touch the plastic here just enough just to melt the tip over a bit so that it's not going to come off. And try not to get some solder on it at the same time. We just melt the top over there a bit so that that won't come off, and we'll do the same on this one here. I'll just mushroom over the top just a bit, and same with on this one here. That way they won't fall apart, because there's no reason to ever take them out, right? They're just to hold the gears in place. You're not getting these parts anyway. I mean, they haven't made these things since, these probably went out of production 20 years ago. I think they stopped making DAT machines around 2005 or 2006 is when they made the last ones. These were really cheap mechanisms. Like I like the power mechanism a lot better. They made these things as cheap as they possibly could, and got the part count down to minimum. But they use plastic parts. When they work great. But when they don't work, well, they really don't work. Anyway, I think that's why this thing was chomping at the tape. As you can see, that's never going to go anywhere now. That's going to stay there permanently. Let's reassemble this thing for the second time and see if we get any better results. Okay, I'll mount the chassis back in again and we'll check it out, and hopefully this is going to make it work, because I don't see anything else mechanically wrong with it other than those plastic clips had fallen off, cracked and fallen off, which is what happens with plastic, right? It shrinks. And normally people think about, oh, it's a plastic clip on a metal pin, or a plastic gear on a metal pin, and this is plastic, but still, the pin's not going to shrink. The plastic clip shrinks. The pin doesn't shrink. So something's got to give, and it's always going to be the plastic clip. I like this little circuit board here sticking up from the side. Was that an afterthought or what? So this one has what they call super bit mapping. This is the A6, the Sony A6. Super bit mapping is it's a DTC-A6, and it's similar to the other models with the addition of this little board here. This is the proprietary super bit mapping IC, this LSI. The other ones were similar, they just didn't have this. Does that improve the sound? Well, apparently it's supposed to. Okay, let's power it up again and watch it proceed to eat my tape again. That's looking better already. Things are moving like they're supposed to. Not sounding proper, but I think there's something on this tape is what it is. This tape's has something, contamination on it or something. I'm going to forward the tape past that section that might be dirty. But still doesn't sound great. Lots of errors. Lots of errors occurring here. It's getting better. Still not perfect. I'm just going to run this back and forth a few times. Give the mechanism a bit of work here. Free things up. It is fast forwarding, rewinding, as you can see. Well, it's playing a lot better now on a different tape. Good old, my next door neighbor was in this band. Yeah, this was his big hit that he had back in the 1970s. Well, now it's sounding perfect. My Music Bakery tape, I can play this one. That RF waveform still, I don't know, it doesn't look right. It looks like there's a lot of noise on it. It could very well be the caps in here too. I'll have to take a look at them. They're not affecting the sound, but it looks like it's affecting the RF waveform, that's for sure. It doesn't look right. But sounding fine. done it, I've just run a tape back and forth a few times. I'm sure the mechanism itself is getting a bit gummed up and a bit sticky from not being used. Because basically all I did was I just fast forward and rewound the tape a few times back and forth. And that got that noise problem cleared up. I think we'll check the caps on the preamp, just because I can. I've got it right. It's ready to look at now. So I'm just going to pop the tape out. I'm going to pop that preamp apart and just look for leaking caps, because they typically, when they go bad, they leak. And well, I've changed hundreds of them. So when I see these units, I kind of expect that I'm going to probably have to change the caps in the preamp, because, well, they just go bad. That's just the way it is. It does have surface mounted caps in it. Good chance they're bad. We'll check them out and see if they're leaking. They're getting changed out. Well, there are 5 of them. They don't look to be leaking, though, at this point. I'll just check the ESR and see if the ESR is starting to head up on these. .2, that's okay. 5.9, that's okay. I mean, they're all measuring under what a new cap would be expected to be for what the capacity of them is. Right? A new cap is a 22 at 6 volts. A 10 volt is rated at 5.4, 16 volt 3.6, and these are 6 volts. So they're in that ballpark, right? They're not high, and there's no indication that they're leaking. This one's a 4.7. 4.7 doesn't even show a reading on this low voltage. But I mean, I could certainly change them. I think I've got some. I could certainly change them up just for the hell of it. I don't know that I've got any small, low profile that will fit in here. The ones I've got are pretty big, so I don't know if I want to bother changing them, because they are not measuring bad. There's no sign of leakage, and they're all testing to be good, and it's not affecting the sound. Normally when the ESR starts to go on them and these start to go bad, you hear it. You hear distorted sounds. Cymbals and stuff are quite scratchy, and they're not on this. So I think I'm going to leave the caps alone at this point, just because, one, I don't have them. I don't have small enough ones. I don't know if they'll fit in here or not. They might. I've done them before with regular caps, right? But you always have to bend them over and lie them on their side. I don't know that it's going to make any difference, because the unit is playing fine, so maybe I'll just leave these alone at this point. Here's the reason I'm not going to change them. This is the smallest ones I have in 22 microfarads, and as you can see, that's not going to fit in here. It's not going to fit in the can. That'll all have to be bent over and twisted every which way, and since these ones are not measuring that they are going out anytime soon, I'm going to leave them alone. Don't need to cause any more troubles by changing out parts that aren't not going to fit properly. If it had distortion problems or obvious indicators that the caps were causing sound quality problems, then I'd be changing them out. But I don't have the ones that will fit. I'm not going to spend a bunch of money to have 4 caps shipped to me, and I'm certainly not going to be placing an order with DigiKey for $100 or something, or what do you got to pay to get things shipped for free. I still got to pay the broker fee though, so that doesn't really help. And I'm sure there'll probably be tariffs put on them on parts coming into Canada from the States. Well, Trump starts to tariff stuff coming from Canada, then we will be doing, I'm sure, the same thing, putting tariffs on stuff coming from the States. And that just puts up the price for everybody. Anyway, I'm going to get this remounted. I think this one's okay. I've been listening to this now for several minutes. Haven't heard a burp out of it yet. It's sounding great. As you can hear, it's playing perfectly. So I'm going to call this one a success. This one's back together and functional again. I'm going to let it run for a while, run a few tapes through it, just to make sure everything is in good shape. But everything now is sounding good. As to those caps, why I didn't change them, well, because they weren't showing any sign of leakage, for one. 2, the ESR is measuring well within spec. And 3, I don't know that these ones were made during the capacitor plague that affect a lot of the earlier ones. This is a relatively late model as far as the DAT run goes, and it was probably made after they corrected the problem with all those leaky caps. The leaky caps were around in the late 80s and into the mid 90s, and then they got the problem fixed, and we didn't see the problem reoccurring. So there's a good chance that the caps in this one here are fine. Is there a date on this thing? I don't see a date on here, but this would have been a later model unit. Give you guys the look from the back side here on this thing operating. As I said, I don't think the caps on here are bad. It's probably from an era after the bad cap issue, because when these caps in here go, you know they're gone. It sounds like crap, like the sound is all distorted. And that is definitely not distorted. I mean, you hear it. You can hear it a mile away. It's distorted, and well, they're leaking. They're basically leaking onto the board and corroding away the traces. I think if these caps were going to leak, they would have leaked by now. So I'm thinking these are the newer style. If they were leaking, then I would be more inclined to rip them out and try to jam a bunch of big ones in there. But because they're not leaking and they measure good, I think I'm going to leave them alone, because they're working at this point and they could be working for years. Well, it's been going here now for 35 minutes. Haven't heard as much as a hiccup, so I'm going to say that this one is now fixed. We'll rewind the tape. Some of these cassettes get a little bit loud after they get pretty old. I'm going to throw another tape in here and let it play these longer ones. Well, I guess this is a 2-hour one, but I'll let this one play. I can't play this stuff on here to you guys because it's stuff I recorded off of whatever. It's not royalty free, in other words. But I'm going to let this one play and listen to this and say thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. This one's done.